This is Sethikus Boza with blackearthproductions. I'm speaking with Timothy Telymonde. Timothy has 30 years experience in medical imaging. He's an electronics troubleshooter, electronics research and development specialist. He has numerous patents, numerous FDA approvals, and a large background in nutritional supplements. And I'm here to speak with him tonight about the Thunder God Vine. This is going to be a very interesting stream. We got a lot to talk about. Timothy, I want to welcome you to Black Earth Productions. It's great to have you on, man.
And thank you very, very much. I really appreciate the time that we're going to spend here tonight. I hope to do much more than entertain the audience. I really want to give some substantial information to people tonight. Let me know where you want to start.
Yeah, we just keep it real on here, man. Keep it raw and real tonight. If you could, man, just say what's on your heart. Say whatever you feel to. One of the first things I want to get into with you, man, you mentioned to me when we were talking previously that you had recovered from nervous system issues and
I had basically Lyme's disease that had progressed undetected for many years. So yes,
everything that I've been tracking on lately in context to the ancient mythos, even the name Thunder God Vine. That was the reason I wanted to message you and get a hold of you. I've actually purchased some myself. It's very potent. If you could unpack a little bit of what your experience has been with this and how you were able to recover from the things that you were dealing with.
You and I were connected by somebody that had been using the product through one of their family members. Yeah,
one of our initiates did get a hold of me and
right. And I just want to preface that was a long-term usage of the product where she was really getting some exponential benefits, and that's how you and I got connected. As far as myself, I had something called anterior uveitis, and what happens in those cases typically is that there's a retinal detachment. So when you said nervous system, basically, a retinal detachment is OLE nerve, old nerve behind the eye, a major nerve connection. And if your nervous system can't repair itself and there's an infection, eventually it's going to deteriorate into basically an eye that's not connected to your nervous system, and then the eye slowly dies. So when I got into basically applying my research hat that I used on previous FDA approvals of electronics devices, I think I had some advantages because, the medical community really doesn't look at, this as an electric universe, but I look at things from a wider perspective, having learned out of necessity about nutritional supplements and applying that to what I had already been studying, not only optically, but electrically, because my products that I developed were, to create a term, optoelectric. When you think about, an atom, at the center of the atom, you have a vortex that throws a magnetic field, but the center of that atom really is a tiny hole, which you can consider a pinhole lens. People don't realize that the maker, the universe, whatever you want to feel that as, sees everything through every atom. Okay. Now, it's important to note that for later on in this discussion, and I didn't really start at that point. I basically started with black and white. How can I help myself not to lose my vision? Because if I lose my vision before I solve this problem that I'm having, I'm never going to be able to read another article, and there's not going to be a chance. So I was basically, at a real hard deadline in my mind, researching, this problem that I was having. I was distraught, but I was also motivated. And so I think I probably read the Encyclopedia Britannica like 5 times over regarding this issue. And what I landed on was something that had been researched and paid for by Christopher Reeve, because he basically had a severed spine, and he was trying to fund research that would help repair his spine. I also met, for a time, was my attorney, And he mentioned to me that Christopher Reeves, while he was alive, was very, very upset that he couldn't get his own research information because some of the real gems were being kept confidential by the pharmaceutical companies. I was looking at the minutia of it, and I started looking at one of the things that basically reduced astrodialysis, okay? And what it means, and that's what's important, is inflammation of the nervous system. And inflammation is kind of another word for disease. And the nervous system is different than a regular cell. A regular cell is small and round, and if your body needs to repair a muscle cell, it creates a little invisible ladder, and it sends a repair protein through that ladder to the cell wall. But always, all the information to make the repair comes from the DNA. Okay,
Right.
but with the nervous system, it's a cell that's stretched out. It's a specialized cell. Okay, so your nerve endings have a neuron, which is where the DNA is stored, and that's the nucleus of the nervous.
You're a little bit close to the phone. Move your mouth back a little bit. It's popping.
Okay.
Yeah.
So in my learning, I learned that the nervous system has a nucleus, and that's going to generate the repair proteins. But they may have to travel all the way down your nervous system road to the ends of your fingertips to make the repair of any damage that your nervous system might have. Now, in my case, the optical nerve, the nucleus is far back, in your cerebral cortex, and then the repair proteins have to travel forward towards the eye. If there's any inflammation that's going to affect that repair protein from getting to its destination, guess what? You're not going to get a repair to happen. So understanding the term astrodialysis, okay, and how it really prevents the body from healing itself is really a big deal because it affects head trauma, auto accident. It affects everyone that really, in most cases, there's very minimal repair naturally after these types of injuries. Or if it's autoimmune, it's typically degenerative because autoimmune basically is a similar situation where the body knows that there's some infection of some sort. It can't really identify the infection perfectly, so it's literally carpet bombing the whole area, and it's destroying it even faster than the infection would alone. And that's basically what autoimmune is. So, but in all of these cases, whether it's done through trauma or autoimmune or just general wear and tear, like in the feet area, which will break down first if your body's not properly repairing itself, it's all coming down to astrodialysis. So having everyone understand that, I think everyone could realize how important it would be an herb that reduced astrodialysis. And that's what I basically located when I learned about this herb, and it being from Korea and Afghanistan and Vietnam, started to understand the delay in this being accepted in the United States because basically nobody was looking at it, nobody was importing it, but a lot of people were researching it. I said to myself, let me learn about this as much as possible. And then I was considering, importing it for myself. At that point, I contacted a doctor named Ole Solegard, L-O-E Solegard, S-O-L-E-G-A-A-R-D, from Denmark. Now, if you just type in Ole Solegard and AIDS, he announced that as a cure for AIDS. So I called the hospital, and lo and behold, even though it was international time zone differences, wouldn't you know that he picked up, and he's he's a world famous physician. And not only did he pick up, he had a lengthy conversation with me, and he really, really, really gave me a complete confidence discussing with somebody I respected a lot. At that point, I hired someone to help me locate the best possible source. We went through a lot of different sources because there's a lot of different versions of this, and they grow in different regions. And some of the species that we worked with, we did not like. So we basically put that inventory aside. And then gradually over the course of the past 2 years, we've been, improving our process, and I've been taking the product. People that have been taking it. After that happened, since it was helping me as far as my nervous system, I started to really gain some insights to some key questions that a lot of people ask themselves every day, like, where did life come from? What is the true nature of the universe? How did the planets form? So basically, it got to the point where my eye was no longer painful. When I started, I couldn't turn my head at all. It got to the point where I could turn my head, and the more my nervous system repaired itself, the more I could feel my mind, gaining an overall understanding of things. And I started to really focus on things that never seemed to ring true, but I was told all of my life that these things were so, okay? And I started to gain a lot more confidence in myself in what I was questioning. And so I said to myself, finally, if I'm questioning these things, and I'm really starting to gain a lot of confidence as far as my intuition and my mind, because my mind's getting clearer and clearer and clearer as every day goes by, I start saying, you know what, instead of just questioning this and then, shelving it, I'm going to take the things that I'm really questioning here, and I'm going to put it top dead center of my mind, and I'm really going to start thinking about this. The first thing I started questioning was I needed to know, from my own understanding, next level of my product, which basically was helping the body identify disease that was really in the DNA. Because remember how this whole conversation began? Right. I was saying that, your body has to pull from the DNA to make repairs. So if there's virus hiding in the DNA, well, you've got a problem, okay? Mm-hmm. I don't want to be controversial in this interview, but I want to say
that controversial as you want to be, man.
Well, I want to say that
BlackearthProductions, dude.
I want to just say that the DNA is where it's at, okay?
Yes.
And if the DNA is, perfect, well, then, you're going to have perfect blueprints to keep rebuilding your body with those prints, okay? A lot of people don't realize that same DNA code is in each cell. So you only need one cell as far as DNA to know the code for your whole body, because it's shared, okay? It's common. Now, certain cells use that print to do different things because they have different jobs in life. So your neuron uses the code that the neuron needs to, repair itself after it's already, after it's formed, okay? And, your skin cells use different parts of that same code to repair the collagen and repair the cell wall of the skin, okay? But if there's any viral code, you might go to read that string of code, and guess what? It's going to get blocked because it won't read past anything that's not in synchronicity. And I'm saying synchronicity in the form of music, because DNA actually is read as sounds. And mm-hmm. You can actually hear what DNA sounds like when it's read to make certain types of proteins. And proteins are nothing more than building blocks. Mm-hmm. So I needed to understand DNA because I didn't want to just be someone that said, oh, this works great. I want to understand why. Unwinding this matrix, actually, you could say that the whole matrix is designed around the helix, because you got to look how it all lines up. And I'm going to jump ahead a little bit. The frequency of the Earth right now is around 32 hertz, okay? Music is supposed to be at 32 hertz, okay? The best numbering system is going to be base 9 or base 12, okay? Or, yes. A factor of 3s, okay? So, but the interesting thing is 32 hertz breaks down to a wavelength of 963, and then there's a remainder, the length of that wave, okay? Now, it cannot be coincidental that the galactic plane, people have to understand that every atom has a center of gravity or an equator, okay? Every planet has a center of gravity and an equator, which is north-south, okay, and the equator. And the universe itself is a conglomerate of many, many planets and suns, but the average still creates an equator there as well. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what almost every knowledgeable scientist interested in this topic aligns with basically measurements that show as the planet is approaching this equator, which is the galactic plane is the equator of the universe, that the frequency is increasing to around 32 hertz, which happens to be the same frequency used to repair DNA and engineer DNA. So you see where I'm going, right? I wanted
I absolutely
to know.
do. And this is a reflection of the macro to the micro.
I wanted to understand how DNA was created. And I started to realize in my mind, if I were to perfectly understand one thing, if I could even understand the word why as it was affected by the sun, the moon, the stars, and the air, and the dark matter and the dark current, then I would have a unified theory, because I would understand, how the word why, as it's put into the universe, is reacting with all those things, okay? So really, to understand one thing perfectly is to understand everything. So what I started to say to myself was, okay, I need to understand the origins of DNA. So I started looking at things that I always disagreed, it didn't ring true, as far as the missing link with man to ape, the man beginning to walk, okay? The timelines that were given on things, okay? The oceans forming, these great pyramids, Stonehenge, the ancient civilizations of Russia that were perfectly fitted stones, 100 tons apiece. The Sphinx, which was carved out of literal bedrock. Now, bedrock is the rock that goes literally to the core of the earth. None of these things seem to make sense that an ancient stone man civilization made these beautiful works of art and construction at such sizable masses. And the dinosaur extinction, I just, none of the explanations ever rang true. Okay. So I started thinking, okay, the frequency of the earth is increasing now. Okay. I need to understand how the DNA is being created. And where did I land? Basically, dark matter and dark current. In your mind, I want you to take two horseshoes and put them together. Okay. So that the open sides are facing each other. Okay. Now, I want you to think that before there was a planet Earth, there was a gravitational density that attracted a little bit of dark energy and dark matter, okay? Now, dark energy and dark matter is like water. You don't see it, but it's moving, okay? And what happens when the planets form, the gas giants are what forms the hydrogen that eventually the suns burn. So I want everybody to imagine that they're going back in time, all the way back in time, before there was even the first sun in our universe. And I want to imagine that you're looking at the universe within our universe, which scientists call a black hole. I always questioned a black hole. I always said they're not telling us what it really is. And what it really is it's a universe that feeds its excess hydrogen, which is made by what? By gas giants in that universe, and it exhales the excess hydrogen into this universe. Certain atoms, certain energies in the universe within our universe are larger when they come into our universe, because the universe within our universe is physically under higher amounts of pressure. So that's why we don't see dark matter. Dark matter is given to us by the universe within ours. We can't identify it, but we know it's a large structure.
Right. And getting into the occult, the esoteric sciences, dark matter is the womb The literal womb of the universal tree. You're talking about multiple universes.
I want you to know that our universe, at the outside edge of our universe, we are feeding another universe. Okay, the thread that connects is the galactic plane. And now I'm going to bring it all home for you, and I'm going to say that the galactic plane, when our planet passes through it, the dark matter that's running the electric current, that's creating the magnetic fields around our planet, is also a cold fusion reactor. Not like the sun, which is nuclear fusion using heat and mass. Cold fusion creates a certain amount of energy. And what does cold fusion need to happen? It needs palladium is platinum under very high pressure, which exists at the center of the Earth's core. Okay, if you look at the atomic structure, it resembles the ancient structures, which is also the side profile, if you cut DNA in half, of what the DNA looks like. Okay, so what you can see when you start looking at this is you could see that you have an information superhighway called the galactic plane, which is also the point of polar shift. And you could see that the magnetic fields that carry the information from multiple universes are sharing this plane. And you could see that when our planet passes through this plane, it raises its frequency to the DNA frequency of 32 hertz. And at that point, it pole shifts. So a lot of the weaker animal species don't survive the actual polar shift. But at the same time, new species are created by Mother Earth, who truly is a mother. And she understands and feels every aspect of the planet. So you got to realize it's not by mistake we have horses. It's because the mind of a human wanted a horse, and he projected that. And that's a magnetic field. But the Earth feels that, and it can react and it can create. Okay? It can literally create a reality. But this is basically us going through the created life reality of the multiverse as we pass through that galactic plane. And that's why you've been seeing, if you look for it, a lot of new life forms coming out of fresh water. You got to realize what's going on. The planet has a magnetic field that runs from pole to pole, but the two horseshoes meet at the equator. So what happens is water runs the opposite direction of the electricity. And the reason that it goes opposite is because electricity is not what you've been told. Electricity is atoms that paddle in energy. The energy is everywhere around us. The energy is the dark matter and the dark energy. So when electricity is applied to a copper wire, most of the electricity is flowing on the outside of the wire because that's less encumbered flappers, which expand as far as magnetic field to try to capture that energy potential. Okay, so yes, the copper wire and all the atoms within the copper are feeling the difference in potential between the plus and the minus, but they're trying to capture that by expanding their magnetic field. And what's happening when that's in water? Well, when it's in water, it can actually push a submarine. That's what they call the caterpillar that was actually made in the movie Red October. So what happens is, the electricity flow is trying to pull in energy, but in trying to do so, it actually pushes the water, so it can actually propel a submarine forward. But now take that same exact thing and apply it to the planet. And now you know what's pushing the water from the center of the planet, which is not hot molten at all, okay? Mm-hmm. And it's pushing it to the tops of the freshwater mountains under high pressure. Major river flows are being forced with the tremendous energy of the magnetic field of the planet up through these mountaintops. So you basically have these two horseshoe magnets that meet at the equator that are running at trillions of volts on dark matter, which is basically a conductor, and it's a special kind of conductor. Since it's a very large atom that we can't see, it can throw millions of volts very efficiently, okay? The longer that electricity runs through that dark that dark matter and dark energy, then they start throwing longer passes. And the longer the pass, the higher the voltage can go, okay? And also the higher the magnetic field. If this continues to go and go and go, you can create a sun because you become a supermass, okay? The real reason when suns collapse that they're so dense is because all the dark matter had been aligned, just like an iron magnet. It holds that magnetic field because iron holds the alignment. Many other things don't hold it, but iron does. Dark matter holds it also. So when suns over time are in complete alignment with this tremendously large magnetic field that was created over time, well, that is precisely why when it runs out of energy, that becomes so massively dense, because the dark matter now is being brought down to an aligned cube of dark matter, which in essence is matter brought back to the density it was in the universe that it came from, which is a universe within ours. And it's not a black hole. Okay, so now I've explained dark matter, I've explained black holes, I've explained electricity. Okay, I'm going to come back to disease now. Think of, just in your mind, draw a star. That's a type of an atom. Okay, now draw another star next to it. What gravity is aligning the points of that star. Okay, so gravity is a soft force that aligns points. But you can also see that gravity, as it aligns, allows higher conduction of voltage. So now what I'm doing is I'm unifying the electric universe and gravity all in one theory, because, in other words, this all combines for one thing. Okay, there is no gravity, there is no real matter. It's just basically magnetic fields. Okay, there is no electricity. It's basically just pulling in energy from the dark matter. Okay, it's not really how it's been explained to us. Gravity is basically that these instruments called atoms have to align to communicate. So they have to align at the points for the information to get passed from point A to point B. Now, I want you to think about disease and the DNA. So your body wants to make a protein. It has to make a certain frequency. That information is also fed through the center of each atom, which is seeing everything in real time. Okay, so your DNA is really the guitar. It's really like a circular guitar with an amplifier built into the circle. And so the amplifier is basically gene expression, and the guitar is the DNA itself. And everything in you is made by three-letter words, okay, called amino acids. So there's only 20 words that make up the whole body, 20 amino acids. By the way, the perfect language, I'm just going to throw this in, would be all three-letter words. So really, the whole world is built on threes, okay?
Right,
Which also brings us back to the
when you break things down to its most basic equation. Well, this
alphabet.
is how things actually work, man. And
things
like disease and all the ailments that people are dealing with is because of a distortion.
Exactly. And that's what I'm going to get to right now. Yeah.
They cannot be altered. They just are, but they've been manipulated, my friends. Because the question is why? Why anything?
Well, even if you look at the fact that we were on a base 12 ruler, which is really a base 12 system, which had to be handed down by the ancients. Right. Why do we go to a base 10, which we were told because we have 10 fingers? No,
because they took 0 out of the equation. But really, it's a base 13, according to the single-digit code 0 through 9.
It says it's base 3, so you got to either be on a base 32, base 64, base 12, base 9. Any mathematical base. Why did we go to the metric system when everything is base 3? Then you want a numbering system that's not going to, have remainders when you put 3 into it. So 3 is going to go into 12 4 times. So if I'm making a pie and I have, 12 threes of arginine and 15 threes of iron, then it makes it easy. I don't have remainders. Okay, so it's not proper that we're ever going to become a truly advanced society if we don't have the proper numbering system.
Right.
So
go on to Black Earth Productions and watch the video called Yggdrasil. Me and my friend Lord Osseron got into this topic, and he pretty much broke it down, man, getting into the distorted mathematics, which is the cause point for death and stagnation, man. You know, these sorts of manifestations that people are dealing with in context to disease and sickness, even physical death itself.
Well, we don't ever really die.
Right, we don't, because energy can't. But it can be siphoned and it can be harvested. And that's what we're dealing with here, man. This is all of the distortions and shit within the DNA, within the electromagnetic field, within consciousness, because everything in the universe is a mental projection, like you're talking about.
Right.
About the force being created. We can create anything. We can, man, the capabilities of the ancients were unbelievably
well. Yeah, I mean, even if you look at
what we've actually been taught, man. When you start awakening and you're having this experience, you're working with this plant teacher called Thunder God Vine. How powerful is that? It wasn't just you were being healed physically, your consciousness started expanding, man.
Remember, we were talking about this, just drawing a star, and that the body itself aligns the points of the stars from atom to atom to atom to atom. Okay, I want people to also imagine that the DNA at one point was what was perfect. Okay, let's say when we were formed at the center of the earth, and that's what I'm saying. I'm suggesting that the earth core is where we're formed. That also explains that the percentage of heavy water that's in every human being, because heavy water is only present at the center of the earth. And it's the only thing that makes sense as far as forming anything for that biosphere, because only at the center of the earth do you know the full density of the earth. Only at the center of the earth do you get the information from the dark side and the sun side of the planet through the Van Allen belts, which are the magnetic fields that circle the earth. Okay. So there you kind of see the Arcadian rhythm, which is basically the length of the day and the night. The one ingredient in the human body, in all bodies, all living things, that determines that rhythm is the percentage of heavy water. And that's been proven scientifically. You can research that. So the only thing that makes sense is that there's a cold fusion reactor that not only made the planet itself from the center out, okay, not from a dust cloud in,
right,
but it also makes all life, and it literally builds it. It builds everything within the planet. People say, okay, well, what about the volcanoes? The volcanoes are at the edge of the original stone part of the universe. The solar system was originally stone. We were stone planets, and that's why you have mesas. The mesas are the flat tops of the original stone core of the planet. Mesas are basically Spanish for tabletop, okay? So, but the planet didn't stop growing at that point. It continues to grow every cycle. So right now the planet's growing again. The problem we're going to have now is that the oil layer, which is also produced by the planet itself, is supposed to be what makes it slide when we have polar shifts. We've taken a lot of that oil out, so how is the planet going to slide when that core shifts? And now what you see in South America is some of the water spouts, in other words, springs that come out of the tops of the mountains that are driven by these magnetic fields, have stopped. So I don't know if that's ever happened before, even before a pole shift or at a core shift of any type. But all the magnetic shifting that we see going on right now with the Earth is very deep and core related, therefore. And if you see, major springs stopping, it may be because that soft layer, which is still supposed to conduct and allow forgiveness during core shifts, because the water would still find its way through that oil layer up into that crevice and into that mountaintop. But if there's no cushion, it's basically like a knee without any cartilage. So we see this already it could be very serious, okay? Now, as far as the planetary string, my theory is that at the beginning, all the planets in our solar system and also the other solar systems within our Milky Way were literally strings of planets. And the word string just rings true. Everybody knows that there was a string of planets, okay? But I'm saying a perfect string was formed at the galactic plane. We had two suns because every solar system is surrounded by something called an Oort cloud, which is an ice cloud, which is water. Suns are primarily made of water before they're fused. Basically, ice giants and dark matter and fusion occurs. So what really happened is that one sun on the binary, there's always a binary. In other words, there's always a matching pair. So when one sun hit fusion mass, it quickly pulled all the planets towards it. Now, if you look at all the moons and all the planets, they all have a pair except for Jupiter. Most of the other planets got picked up as moons to our Jupiter, but the other half of Jupiter itself, I think, did not get picked up by any planet as far as the moon because it was too big to get picked up and therefore collided with the sun. And when that collided with the sun, just as it triggered fusion, it knocked it off of its galactic plane. And the first knockoff from the galactic plane was the largest span of time before it came back to the galactic plane again and did another pole shift. And that's why the dinosaurs had such a long period of time before there was another mass extinction. So that is what I think happened, and that's why the only unmatched pair as far as planetary sizes is Jupiter. And Jupiter is also tied to the sun as far as the sun shifting. And that could be because the other half of our sun, I don't think ever left the galactic plane. So that galactic plane is basically a 10-year span between its top and bottom. So I think that the dwarf matching pair to our sun is still staying in within the galactic plane area, but it's still affecting because it's entangled, which entanglement's a whole other thing. But entanglement is basically, I think, information is captured by the mind of the universe that says, okay, these guys were together at one point. And so if one shifts, then the other one shifts. And nobody understands that. I think the reason they don't understand it is because it's basically the mind, because there's a connection there that I don't fully understand that. So now I'm going to go back to the star again. And instead of a star connecting to a star point to point, I want them to imagine the disease part of the DNA is like an offbeat star. It cuts itself into our DNA, and it only bonds itself in a few different spots. And those spots are called HDAC bonds, okay? Now, guess what? There are certain plants that break those HDAC bonds, but the plants don't break the good DNA bonds because they're perfectly connected, because they're all aligned in the same manner. But the disease part of the DNA has a slightly different geometry, so the points don't only align in a few different areas, and your body picks that up. And when certain plants are eaten, they break those HDAC bonds, and that doesn't cure disease. But what it does is it isolates it from the DNA, and if it's isolated for a long enough period of time, your body can see it as an invader, even though it's in the DNA, and remove it and even repair the DNA. And people don't understand that. And people don't study HDAC inhibition and how it allows disease to hide in the DNA, because those HDAC bonds bond the amplifiers that the DNA is wrapped around together like glue. So your body can't read through that section. So it never sees that disease, okay? So this is really the 5 million pound gorilla in the middle of the disease conversation that's never talked about. And it's so simple to learn about. Basically, it's HDAC inhibition. And then you can learn about, what plants do certain HDAC numbers. And there's not that many of them. There's 1 through 12, but most of them, most of the disease is caused by 1, 2, 4, and 8. I can't remember off the top of my head, but it's not that hard to learn about. Understanding HDAC inhibition, which is what Dr. Oli Solagard was researching. But in having to understand where all that comes from, it allowed me to understand really the world that I live in, which is wonderful because it expands my whole outlook on life. I also have a deeper appreciation, a deeper love for the universe. You know, it just deeper and deeper and deeper every day. You know, and I know that a lot of people, you know, are just working every day trying to make ends meet and pay the bills. And I just had the wonderful opportunity of becoming so sick that I had to get off that treadmill and actually think for a minute. Okay.
Right.
And I had no choice, because if I didn't stop and start thinking, I would have just went blind. And that became a very, very simple equation for me. You have nothing if you can't see. You've got to stop. You've got to think. You've got to look at what's going on here. You know, I ask everyone to start thinking for themselves and start understanding this universe that we live in. There's people that are way, way, way smarter than me that have known these things. So you have absolute knowledge, absolute power, dealing with a lot of people that are just worrying about making ends meet. Okay.
Right.
And that's not what life's about. Okay. That's a treadmill that you were put on so you couldn't think, because you couldn't have time to think. It's really not about that. It's really about, you know, being kind to your fellow man so that we build a better world for the next group of people that come into it. You know, also, I got to tell you that the cleaner that my health got, and I understand things a little bit better as far as, you know, hey, you know, I got to do the right thing here. Because so many times I just want to just, you know, throw in the towel and not even try to explain this to people and not even. Are you with me?
Yes, I'm listening.
Oh, okay. The only single thing that I didn't cover was I'll share a story with you. I was on the top of a mountain in California, a stone mountain, and I stopped at an area where I just felt like I was drawn to that area. I found out later that that area was right underneath a hot spring, a natural hot spring. I actually found the hot spring about 3 weeks later and went into the hot spring, and it was just beautiful. But while I was in that spot, I went to sleep, and I just have to say that there is such a tremendous healing and connection with the stone core, which is the pre-sun core of the earth. Now, they're just learning right now that quartz has something called a monopole in it. And you have to realize that how important that is, because in electronics, you got to have a yes, a no, and you got to have a neutral, okay, which is the monopole. So they found monopole inside quartz. But what is quartz? Quartz is stone. That is the nervous system of the stones. So they're basically mining and learning about the nervous system of the pre-sun life form, which the stones were alive.
Wow,
In essence,
that's really
they
interesting.
probably still are alive, providing feedback information to the universe. Okay.
Okay.
But so I slept on an ancient stone mountain that was directly above spring that was heated. Now that means that I had to be on top of a direct connection of a water feed from the center of the earth up. Okay, which means it's a heavy magnetic field. During this time, which is basically we're close to the galactic plane, okay, and the the dreams and the feelings and the energy that I felt during these times were just, I appreciate so much nature, natural water, natural springs, natural stone, natural magnetic fields, and what it did for me. I don't want to really get into specifically, you know, how these things were unveiled to me some of it in my subconscious, okay? But it's very real. I also want to say that the ancient pyramids at one point were very smooth surfaces, and they were marble surfaces. Now, if the ancients were using their minds to move stone, they would have to scatter electromagnetic field from the region, from the area. Okay, so magnetic fields that were basically coming down on the pyramids would be reflected back, and it would create basically an envelope of neutrality, which would allow you to use your control of magnetic field and projection to basically make things happen. And that very well is depicted in a lot of the hieroglyphics of the Egyptians, and they're showing it with the staff, they're showing them moving things, they're showing like a ray, that's showing the forehead, you know, and people just aren't paying attention to this, okay? And they're not paying attention to what the pyramid really does to electromagnetic waveforms within the earth, or the true reason why it's completely perfectly in alignment with magnetic true north on that flux line. There's a very good reason for this. Now, look, I mean, somebody can listen to this podcast and say, well, I don't believe a word Tim just said. Or people that are in tune might say to themselves, well, that actually rings true, and trying to prove it to be false, because I've looked at this, you know, and I am a truth seeker. I want to know the truth. One of the hardest things for me to do was to break myself from what I had been programmed with. And once I broke free from that, then I became liberated. I want people to bring these thoughts to the next level.
Right, until people do for themselves, my friends. We can't do for other people. If people are sick and diseased and they're broken and they don't know what's going on, then they can't be of assistance for what we're actually talking about.
Right. So, and the answer isn't to invoke.
Doing this for yourself is what people need to do.
So if love wasn't the common denominator, the universe would have been destroyed long ago by an advanced race, farther advanced beyond ours. Okay? We're all going to be better for helping, you know, repair damage that we caused in the past, elevate, you know, people that can barely think for themselves because they got so much DNA damage, but we can repair it and they can become really good people. And the more they get repaired and the more they get connected to the core knowledge of the universe, the better people they're going to be. And it's going to be a good thing. Okay. And we can do this. And, you know, I'm only trying to rock the water out of the boat. I'm not trying to sink a boat. I owe that to the world because I was born for a reason and I became sick and I learned some things, and I want people to have that. You know what I mean? I don't want to just keep it to myself. And as far as the Thunder God Vine, it's been mind expanding, okay? But not like, you know, anything else, and not even something that's noticeable. In other words, you don't realize that your mind is basically getting stronger because it's happening so slowly. I researched basically how quickly the nervous system can repair. So as far as I understand it, in my research, the body can repair 1 million neurons per day. So even if you're maxing out and you're eating perfect and you're exercising and you're taking all the right nutritional supplements and you're doing everything properly, you're still only going to be at a rate of 1 million neurons per day. But if you're consistent and you know what you're doing, even though you don't feel a difference, over time you're going to see a difference. You're going to feel a difference. You're going to think a difference. Okay, so you know it's subtle. I can't say that
it's the subtle magic, the bound Fenrir. Okay, this is getting into the mythos of my ancestors and the ironic fact that this is called Thunder God Vine. You're talking about electromagnetics. You're talking about double suns. You're talking about the way the universe works.
Well, even thunder and lightning creates actual fusion reaction.
Exactly.
Okay? This was named by the ancient people that drink this as a tea outlived the rest of the population by many years. And that's really a watered down version of what it could be. You know, especially when I spoke to Dr. Oli Solagard and, you know, how far he's refined.
It's just interesting that they call it Thunder God Vine. Why do they call it that?
Well, the direct translation is Thunder Duke Vine. So the translation became on the English side Thunder God Vine,
Okay.
And the Asian translation is Thunder Dukebine. But I can only imagine, that they were trying to think of what could be the most powerful name we could apply to this specific herb, because it's so powerful, So names are always by the mind. The mind can see. The mind knows what to name things, right? I mean, especially the ancients, they were very in tune, right? So I think it is very interesting that it has such a strong and powerful name, and I can frankly understand why. I completely understand why. If I had to name it myself, I could not think of a better name than what they came up with. So really, we're walking on the shoulders of giants, just having this conversation.
Right. It's just very interesting getting into the science of magic, because what's happened and the disassociation, which is a part of the distortion. In ancient times, magic and science were synonymous. It all goes back to how things actually work.
Drops of water within drops of water, and endlessly. Water itself has memory, okay? And it captures a magnetic field, and it has a meniscus around it, which would emulate, in essence, a magnetic field. Imagine all the planets and all of the universe is like drops of water with magnetic fields that share information. And the atoms within themselves are like snowflakes or different shapes, okay? I started to understand, all these different facets of water. The dream basically was I had asked the universe again to deepen my understanding of water and how it's connected, to the overall mind of the universe. What I understand now, partially, basically in atoms, different geometry, pulling in the energy and that vortex that connects at the center of the atom goes into the water layer. And that makes sense to me now, because I could see that all the atoms are connected into that energy layer, which is instantly knowing everything. And it acts like water, which has memory, which is how it was described to me. And I don't know if anybody believes any of this stuff. And I'm not.
Well, here's the thing. All people got to do is go back and listen to the videos that have been uploaded on Black Earth Productions. I will confirm for you the things that have been revealed to you, because there's more pieces to the puzzle, my friend.
This may not be far from the truth. In essence, this could be really.
No, it's not. It's not at all. I can confirm it myself.
Truth, okay, even though it was revealed to me in a dream, but it was really a sequence of dreams.
But this is how truth works, man.
Like most of what I've researched has been hard text, research, putting it all together.
Right.
When my body got healed to this,
that's not the only way to find something out, man.
Right. So at some point that took me to as far as I could go, and then I was basically in the realm of theoretical science, and I was trying to really become as close as I could to nature.
Right.
And at that point is when these dreams, these three, and I didn't even ask for the information until I understood the first part, and as of late I have not asked for any information, because frankly I've been so busy and cluttered with, I'm back on
you're still processing, man.
Yeah, I'm back, but I'm back on the treadmill, and when you're on the treadmill, you can't get to that level. You know what I mean? You got to have rest. You got to have time.
Yeah, we got to go.
You got to go on a long drive. You got to. We
have to allow what is being uploaded and integrated to have its process, so that we can even come to the point of being able to communicate. There's so many things that have been revealed to me I can't even communicate fully. You know what I'm saying?
I think that's also, just like what you're saying, I think that's also why the ancients has tremendous wisdom, because they took time. Yes. Just like, Tesla said, all the knowledge comes from the universe. I mean, literally it has to, but it wants to reveal it to itself to us. And, as long as we apply it the right way, and
the real secret of all of this, man, is that all is within. It's just a matter of knowing how to access it. These ideas, instead of thinking that we already have the answer or that we need to have it, allowing truth itself to reveal to us more and more and more as we continue to expand. This is the essence of Thunor. This is the essence of what you're talking about within the vortex of the atom itself. This is getting into some
because the atom, I'm saying,
concepts
is basically,
when it comes to the higher occult sciences and magic itself. It's the ability to be able to create from what is within you, man. You're talking about the water, the waters of life, the DNA, the consciousness, the energy. Learning how to work with it instead of having to deal with the idea that we're going to fucking die, or we can't get to a higher level of knowledge within ourselves because we've been so limited. And people hit that ceiling because they're working with one part of the equation and say one person over here has mastered a certain part of it, another person over here has mastered a different part of it, and then those two come together, greater fusion happens, and that's what I feel going on right now. I'm letting you speak because I know you have a lot to say.
The energy of Mother Earth is tremendous. People could harmonize with that.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of that's been isolated from people because, you know, we wear shoes.
We're being disconnected from nature.
Yeah.
You're talking about the Maya, you're talking about the matrix, the construct of it, the projection of the mind through the conditioning, through the distortion, has created around us, cut us off.
All of the spring origination points, like at the tops of mountains, they're always covered or masked by some commercial project. You know, that's where the best energy is. You know, where the spring erupts through the top of the mountain. They're always
some of the hermits.
They're always covered. I can't think of one that's not. And I've traveled the country. I've traveled and I've looked. Even ones that were not covered are covered now with dump trucks of stone and so on. And then you see this the water coming through, like, you know, these pebbles. But at one point it was accessible in large caves, and these were really beautiful energies.
Okay, I have a question for you. Would you say that the manifestation of all of these things you're talking about is a part of the distortion within the DNA?
Yes, because people, for example, say, "Oh, I want to help the animal. That's my calling in life." You're not going to help the animals until you heal the people, because the people of the world are in control of the world, and they're in control of either doing really good things to the animals or really bad things. And if these people are not logical because they have so much disease at the heads of every state and at the heads of every family, and they can't even think properly, how can you expect a good result to occur when it comes to the animals? How can you expect a good result to occur anywhere?
Right.
Frankly, I'm surprised that we've gone this far with the amount of disease and destruction that's happening on a minute-by-minute basis. Mother Earth is where it's at. She wants to center us. She wants to heal us. The power class, at this point, they're at the end of a big, giant 1,000-year plan. Even they can say now, hey, wait, we didn't expect we were going to be able to really heal and explore the stars.
Right.
Maybe there was a better way here. So everybody is reflecting right now. And by the way, reflection is a thought. That's actually what started the entire universe. Two vibrating fibers that between the vibrations create a magnetic field, which is a circular reflection that reflects in. So you can't have two without three, because as soon as you have two, then you have the magnetic field, which creates a third. That's the essence of three.
Right.
So you can't have one without creating two, because one just begins to vibrate and it basically vibrates into two, and two creates the sphere, which is the first sphere, which is the three.
Everything that you're talking about as far as numbers.
Right.
You're talking about 1 going to 2, 1 plus 2 is 3, right? But everything, like the vortex of the atom, comes from the zero. This is where the soul spark, not only within the universe and all creation, but within the individual. This is about the spindle getting into the 396. Without zero being part of the equation, drawing the circle of the magician. People are polarized within themselves and distorted, inverted. The 396 is a triangulation, taking zero out of the equation, which throws us into the 1, 2, 4, 5, 7, 8. And this is the feedback loops that everybody's been in. And every time people hit that ceiling, they get snapped back, going into other avenues and exploring, okay, what did I miss last time? And this is what we're all essentially trying to do, bringing things back into alignment. I literally can confirm many of these things based upon what has been revealed to me through the study of the occult and magic. And this is just a different way of explaining it.
It's best to get directly connected to the universe, directly, and kind of weed out a lot of these things that maybe not have been perfectly transcribed. You know what I mean?
Right. God doesn't do anything. We are the ones making the choices here in this reality field. And we're left with what we create. Everybody, what they choose,
and that's what
is going to determine their reality. Mm-hmm. You know, everybody in this reality field is having a different experience. There's all these belief systems. And when it comes to AI, artificial intelligence is religion. They're working with fragments, okay? And I want to talk also about the twin sun. You said that our solar system originally had 2 suns. But getting into the fragments of consciousness that we've been having to work with because of the cataclysms that took place, the cause point for things being the way they are at the moment, it doesn't mean that it can't change. We do have a lot to heal. But this all goes back to Maldek. This goes back to the planetary Templar, which is held within the core of the planet itself, like you're talking about. The water, the consciousness, all of this, it's all been fragmented. And this is what we're working to heal again. And the outward expression of that was the destruction of Maldek itself. Maldek was the twin sun. It was a water sphere, much like Earth. I mean, this is getting into history that people have no idea about, unless they come onto my channel and maybe a few other fucking people. I can verify what I've looked into. But also going into dreams, you're having these more profound experiences that are balancing out the logic, getting into science, getting into mathematics, getting into, you know, that way of seeing things. But then there's this whole other spectrum of reality that we've been cut off from. And it's keeping people from accessing the real knowledge that is going to get us beyond where we've been conditioned to be. These are the things that you're getting into and even experiencing yourself, and it's very profound. This is what's going to be at the forefront within the next 7 years going into 2025. Because everything that they're doing, you're talking about the people that have been in power and stuff like that, everything that they're doing is done. They don't have any more viable energy to be able to sustain what they are trying to do. Ultimately, I feel it's going to fail because there's those of us that are waking up, realizing that we are the true technology. You are the true technology. We've always been the true technology. But, you know, taking supplements like Thunder God Vine and taking care of yourself also to make connection to what we're talking about through the science of magic, the higher occult practices that I'm showing people and having results. And so this on top of it, because you got to start with the prima materia. Getting into alchemy, you start with the physical vessel. And all these people out there talking about this shit about the physical realities and illusion, it's not. Nature and the universe is very real. It's just the fact that we've been cut off from what you're talking about, which is the cause point for the distortion and the experience of physical death. You know, death is an illusion. We're going to keep coming back again and again and again and again until we catch this. And this is what we're here to do now in this hour, is catch everything that we're talking about. So
I want to just comment, like, if you look at L. Ron Hubbard and Dianetics and, you know, that whole thing, Scientology basically taking one thing that's true and distorting it, you know, right. And then you have various religions take parts that are really true, and then there's distortion, true distortion. Mm-hmm. And that was the whole point that I was trying to make, because really a group, period, has to be a distortion to your reality because you're an individual. So really the answer is the true group is subconscious and getting in touch with the true gravitational circumference of the universe and the multiverse and tapping into the true love of the combined consciousness of reality. You won't be able to walk down the street and not pick up the garbage on the side of the road, because that's just how it is. You know, when you get down to the universe itself, it's
right, because you are not going to allow that in your universe, your microcosm of the macro. It's a reflection as within, as without. This is getting into the law of correspondence. Everything out there is a reflection of what is within us. And until people realize the heavens above are within, and we heal ourselves from within, it ain't gonna fucking happen. People are still gonna be going, you know, without, and then they're adding on distortion, keeping them from accessing what we're talking about, man.
Well, you have to realize that you're dealing with the ultimate intelligence, and that ultimate intelligence is dealing with a large percentage of the population, which, hasn't had time to really sit back and think about what's going on.
Right.
And it's very easy for them to throw in a little misdirection here and there to just keep people off balance. I mean,
they do that by design. What do you think everything is?
Distortion by design.
Right. For the purpose of harvesting genetics and consciousness and energy. You're talking about the earth itself. The earth itself is self-sustaining. Everything came from its core essence. It grew out from within. These individuals are not self-sustaining. They can't connect back to that, because in order to connect back to that, they have to go into the distortion and actually heal it. Now, to fucking wake the fuck up, otherwise, they're going to be left with what they created. And we're going to detach from that. We're going to get into the real knowledge of the universe, the knowledge of what we're talking about, recalibrate, and bring something forth different for ourselves first, and potentially other people. This is a way of life. This is a way of being. This is a way of doing that is not like how things are right now. This is all very real.
I'm concerned about, back in, I think, 2014, there was legislation passed that allowed propaganda to be legally used in the United States. And people don't realize that, but it was passed. And what's happening right now is that the world is changing by design, because it's a global polar shift. And a lot of people, they are aligning policies and half-truths to be told legally to basically position the politics and the people so that it all unfolds how they would see it. And that somehow the black hearts become, white hearts, because you can only have two bosses. One boss. You can either create your own reality through artificial intelligence and disconnect the entire living, breathing set of people and things on planet Earth, or the other way of handling it is lead from goodness, complete separation and control, and let people respect you for the good that you're doing. And that's a big decision that is being made right now. I can't imagine how much people couldn't even love enough a power class that really helped them and made their lives better. Do you know what I mean? And healed their disease and allowed them to live so long and explore these other planets and worlds. I mean, where do I sign up? You know what I mean?
Right, and this is what is meant to come. And it's the fact that people now need to make the choice, especially going into 2018. Because if we don't catch it,
right,
they will get their transhuman timeline, and humanity is fucking over. This is what it comes down to now, because we're trying to get back onto the original, and this is what we're talking about. Coming back into alignment, you're talking about love, you're talking about power, and this is why healing is so important. What I term creator source, okay? I don't say God, because religion is AI, okay? It's fragmented, it's watered down. It keeps you in fucking kindergarten.
I have a pastor friend, and I tell him that, look, I pray straight to the universe, and I feel closer now the way I pray now than when I was told to pray, sort of. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And now, that's how I connect. I'm an individual. Right. I'm an individual. And every individual should have that freedom. And they should also have that freedom to be unencumbered by disease, to where they can really pray at their natural frequency too. Because that's a whole other thing where people cannot directly connect because they have so much disease in their DNA that they can't meditate. They can't focus. They can't focus their energy down to strong frequencies. And that's also part of disease and GMOs. And what I see up to this point is an attempt to separate everyone from that universal consciousness that I have been so blessed to be connected with. And when I get back into focus, I hope to reconnect in that way. But I'm saying that I can see that the entire population is being consciously separated from that realm. And I'm hoping that can come back to old school, and, where people were able to deeply get into meditation, deeply get into doing the right thing, high levels of honor, and a power class that is above even anyone, because they're just at that knowledge level. So, we'll see how it all plays out. Right now I see a lot of things changing almost in real time. So we'll see how it all plays out. I'm concerned.
I really like what you said about how it works different for each individual, and see that, and this is getting into the higher occult sciences that I practice, that I teach. I've been doing this for over 20 years.
So a cult, by definition, is a group?
It is absolutely not a group.
Tell me.
The real occult knowledge that they don't want us to know, that they don't want us to access, is the knowledge of self. How we actually operate, how things actually work, like we're getting into. And so you've already been able to tap into occult knowledge that you've been able to access doing what you do from within yourself. This is the secret, okay? Occult simply means hidden. It simply means hidden. That's the definition of occult. So the hidden knowledge of self, they don't want us to know that we're the true technology. They don't want us to know what we're actually capable of. And the way it works for you is not the same way it works for me, but based on universal fundamentals and principles that are eternal. You can learn how to access everything that we're talking about, getting into the sciences of the biospiritual regenesis. I call my services Blue Flame Healing Arts and Occult Science. And here's the thing, it's healing arts first before occult science. I'm not even teaching magic until people know how they actually operate. And so this is what we dive into, man. It's not a group. It's not a fucking religion. It's not a belief system. It's how things actually work. It's a science. Know thyself, then you will know the universe.
I mean, everybody is a diamond. Everybody,
right.
And even a diamond is part of a nervous system. I'm still a baby in my understanding here. I look forward to continuing. I teach myself just in talking with you. And that's the whole thing, because basically the mind sees everything at the same time. So every time you think something, right, you're basically not even realizing that you're taking all of your knowledge, even past lives, which are, we only see, 0.0001% of the universe physically. Okay. Right. And so there's a lot going on that we don't understand. And I'm just a baby in my starting under, and just being able to, touch on a couple of things. But, I am especially concerned about the times that we're living in right now. Right. And I wish that people would learn for themselves about the risk of what global magnetic field change really entails. Okay. The risks of living close to watery, low-lying region. These are serious times that we're in. The rock back and forth between winter and summer, they have to realize, is what's left over of a rock that occurred from a past polar shift. So we have to realize that that's a perfect clock, and those clocks don't lie. There's some things that are happening right now with the Earth that could come to a real serious point. I don't want to say anything more than that because I don't think it's my place, and I'll just leave it at that. Right.
Past, present, and future are all happening now. There's so much that we could talk about and dive into, man. I think this is good for tonight, though, yeah?
I think so, yeah. We covered a lot. So, and I think for your viewing audience, it's up to them whether they want to investigate some of the things that we talked about, and they want to further their research in a given area and see if this, fills in some blanks that they had about any of these topics and how they can hopefully improve their life by reaching some of these subjects.
Absolutely, man. So, so if anybody wants to get a hold of you, have them get a hold of me.
Yeah, we can work it that way. I just want to keep it my business. I did this only because I wanted to help people. I did not do this to sell product, and that's fine with me.
Well, a lot more is going to be revealed to you, man. I could spend the next 10 hours getting into many different things. I'm really excited to talk to you more and share with you more in context and confirmation, man. You're getting uploads and having experiences, and so many other people, this is happening, but they don't know what is actually going on.
I really do feel like I'm almost to the point where I could actually put together the electric universe at some point not too far away from today.
And then
But
what?
we'll see. We'll see. You know.
The things that are being revealed to us via our soul code genetics, via the blood code genetics, the ancestors are awakening. All of the things that have been laying dormant within the DNA are waking up now. And the other half of the equation, okay, getting to the dark ones. And when I say dark ones, there is no darkness but ignorance. They're ignorance of these things. They've only been working with fragments, keeping themselves in the positions of domination and control. When it comes to our kind, when it comes to our kin, we are able to access more than even they can because of what we're actually connected to and who we actually are. And this is what we need to remember. This is what we're all going to remember even more in the coming days, weeks, months, years to come, if we continue to catch it. Since you know another one of my students, and we've spoken now, you're a part of this network. I know you're not about groups, but we are a network of individuals that are trying to pull things back into alignment for ourselves, and then, of course, encouraging and empowering one another. It's so simple, man. It's not like this convoluted fucking agenda like we're trying to start a mass movement or anything. We're trying to remember who we are and what we actually are here to do and why we came here, instead of running out and joining some group thinking that you're going to find yourself out there when we need to go within. This is where we're going to find ourselves, and then we can come back and share and explore like we're talking about now. And then the expansion of consciousness and life and the power of love like you're talking about, man. The world has been so cut off from that, so unbelievably cut off from what you're talking about. And see, you can't give unto others what you don't give to yourself first. It's the disassociation within the DNA, right on down to the molecular structure. With the atom itself, you're talking about the star and the distortion there. I can literally see what you're talking about.
And you could see that, the disease is off-beat stars that's still connecting at a few different points. You know, think of it almost like a square peg in a round hole. It's connecting. It's tied into the DNA, but it's out of tune. And once you break those bonds, that out of tune is. It's not a call from the cell itself to make a repair. In other words, with HDAC inhibition, it basically breaks some of the disease out of the cell and allows it to be seen. Once the cell itself can see its disease, it could say, hey, I need this kind of, repair done to me, or I need this kind of T cell to take me out or take this virus out, okay? So it's a call. Antibiotics isn't a call for help. Antibiotics is basically putting something that generates a general immune response that's just going to kill all the things that are that type that immune response is made for. The problem with that is that sometimes you have diseases that actually affect T cells. So you could be throwing T8 cells at a disease, and the disease could be infecting the immune system. So somebody could have a minor thing, take antibiotics for it, 10 years later, not even realize that disease is going to multiply when your red blood cells and your T cells replenish themselves, which is every 10 years. And then 10 years later, from something that was minor, but it infected the immune system, now that immune system has been running weaker for 10 years, and when it divides, those cells are going to divide exponentially, and it's really going to become a problem. And that's why you have 10-year intermittent relapsing MS and many other diseases that are remitting relapsing because so you get what I'm saying a little bit, right? And it all comes down to these basically, gravitational points aligning and allowing disease to stay within that genome. But yes, there's ways to break that out and allow specific immune responses to take place, okay? And then the name of that type of technology, which is a natural technology, is HDAC inhibition. And even green tea is an HDAC too. That's why green tea is healthy. But the problem is it's a combination lock, and you got to hit all the combos for it to really release the bad information out of you, okay, or for your immune system to see it. So that's why you got to know the combination, and that's why these new products that we're going to come out with in 2018 are going to be really, really, really great.
Okay. Yeah. And I do look into ancient culture. I mean, but even the ancient Egyptians who really planned for death all of their lives, they never took it for granted that they were going to be saved and have a proper afterlife. And the main thing is that we can never take anything for granted here and now, and we got to work hard to try to, to get this mess that we've created, because we're all responsible, because we all could have stepped in and straightened out at some point. We all could have done our part. We all could have done a better job, but we got to at some point fess up and make it better, and
Right.
and try to do what we're supposed to do,
Right.
So,
Right, and that's what's happening now. We'll go ahead and end it tonight. I want to thank you for coming on, Timothy. It's been awesome talking to you, man, for real.
Yeah, definitely, man. Same here.
Awesome, man.
Rock on. I hope that this reaches many, and hopefully it'll be well received. Thank you.
Yeah, it's going to be good, man. If any of you out there listening to this right now would like to get a hold of me personally and can imagine for a moment that there's far more for you to access in context to everything spoken about in this segment, if you can imagine yourself coming into a streamline of proper knowledge that is going to skyrocket your potential and your evolution, and are seeking a proper initiation into the occult, let alone getting free access to also purchase the Thunder God Vine itself, then send me an email at blackearthproductions@hotmail.com. Feel free to check out our website at blackearthproductions.com. There you will get access to everything, all the free material. I have a lot more coming in the future, and there's a lot of updates that are going to be made very, very soon in context to everything. So if you want to get in now, I highly encourage you to do so. Getting direct mentorship. This is Sethikus Boza, Black Earth Productions. I'll be speaking with more of you soon.